Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Red Embrace Hollywood. This time, we have to decide whether we want to enable Heath's addiction and agree to have a little boom chihuahua with him while he's taking all the drugs, and also maybe take drugs with him, or say no. And the decision I've already made, not only based on your comments, but also, as you can see, I've checked the scene because I wanted to make sure whether it would be fine to show on YouTube. And let me just say, I don't really think so, because the scene, as much as the artwork is not that much not safe for work, there's no genitalia shown or anything like that, but the description is very descriptive, let's say. It's very to the point, and it does describe the whole intercourse in a detail. So I'm not really sure if that will be fine to show you in here. And although I must say the scene is very nicely written and it is worth to check it out, I have to say it was one of the saddest moments I've ever experienced in gaming in general, which says a lot because I've played a lot of games. And let me just say that if you agree, and also when you actually pretend to take the drugs and you just let him take the drugs and you will have sex with him while he's intoxicated and you are sober, it's so sad. I think it's great though. Like, I really think it's an awesome scene, awesomely written, because it really greatly shows how it would look like with a vampire. Also based on how I interpret Vampire the Masquerade, the current edition. I feel like low humanity sex is just this. It's not fun unless you really spice it up with other things, because by default it's just a very, very sad and gruesome experience. And yeah, when you take drugs with him, it's a little bit more fun, of course, and you do have fun for some time as it lasts, but then when it fades away, it just all comes back to normal, and normal is sad and horrible. And I kind of get now where Heath is going from with all these addictions and all this like willing to just get away from it all. And it's very heartbreaking, but I get it. Anyway, we are not going to enable him. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it will give him anything but this momentary escape from it all, and he will come back to reality, and the reality is horrible, so we don't want him to clash. We don't want this clash to happen, so I'm going to say then maybe we'd better not. Oh. His fingers curled tightly shut around the syringe and bottle. He didn't try to hide his disappointment, but he didn't argue either, closing his eyes and slightly inclining his head. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me. Of course we shouldn't do anything. We're in public anyway. Yeah, I'm not even mentioning the fact that the whole sex scene happens next to the dumpster in a dirty alley with some syringes around. Like, it's sad. He sank his teeth into his bottom lip, making it turn even paler. For a moment he didn't seem to have the courage to say anything. If it's not too much to ask, could we just stay here a little while? Pulling his legs up against his chest, he turned his gaze towards the dark sky. We don't need to talk. I think maybe we shouldn't. Put my arm around him. I curled my arm around Heath's waist, pulling him against my side. That's much nicer, okay? It's much nicer than that scene, so I'm okay with that. After a moment, he let his head rest on my shoulder. A little hesitantly at first, but eventually nestling in close. For some reason, he seemed so small and thin in my arms, like a paper doll. He looked the same as he always did, but as he curled up beside me, I had the sense I was holding something very fragile. We spent the rest of the party like that, away from the noise and chatter. There wasn't a heartbeat, a breath, or an ounce of body warmth between us, and yet I felt like we were more alive than all of the smiling vampires inside. That's pretty nice. Eventually, when Charisse came out to find us, Heath and I had to part ways. Okay, to sum it up, not worth it if you want your emotions shattered. Worth it for the writing. If you want to explore the sex scene, I would say the writing is really good and it really portrays the whole problem with it very nicely. And it just feels very bad in character. So if you are invested emotionally in it, I wouldn't recommend going with that. I think that was much nicer. As he waved goodbye to us, standing at the entrance to his bar, I thought I saw a small smile on his face. Aww. Not from hope, then from relief. Actually, this is the same way as the sex scene ends. Once you allow him to do all these things to you, or you do all these things to him, he does also feel relief. So the ending of the scene is similar, but yeah, in the meantime, it's just much sadder. Damn. I feel emotions. I do feel them, and I'm happy, because I'm happy when games make me emotional. A faint drip echoed from somewhere inside the garage. It filled my ears as I walked along, my thoughts drifting absently. I was on my way back from my last mission. Charisse had sent me to blow up an old storage facility. Haha! Like in Bloodlines. Some upstart vampire and Iscari who'd defected to Randall's site was using the place to hide weapons. She'd sent me out alone, so I had... Oh, crap. Purposefully sabotaged my own explosives. I planted the explosives inside, but sabotaged them carefully. That way, if Charisse sent another agent to see why the facility hadn't exploded, I could pretend someone tampered with it after I left. Good thing to do. I think so. I don't know. Now I was on my way back to the hotel, taking a shortcut through the parking garage. With any luck, I arrive with time to spare and have the rest of the night to myself. A few weeks had passed since that night at Saturnalia with Heath. I'd been so busy traveling around LA on various assignments that I hadn't gotten much time to see him. He sneaked into my room now and then, long enough for us to hold each other. But it always seemed like he wanted to tell me something. Hopefully one day soon I could figure out what was bothering him and why he was keeping it a secret. The garage was unnervingly quiet. All I could hear was the sound of my own footsteps and the droning hum of fluorescent lights overhead. I never figured out who kept these lights on, or if some electrical company had just never bothered to shut them off. Somewhere far above me, thunder rumbled outside, announcing a storm that might have already arrived. Just another calm night as a vampire in Hollywood. Calm? I don't think it's going to be calm. As I approached the staircase that would lead me outside, something made me freeze. I felt a presence nearby. It was approaching me from the staircase and from above. Can I catch a break for one night? My disgruntled mutter while cathartic didn't do nothing to stop the oncoming footsteps. A moment later, a different rumble started to echo from above. The sound of a car engine. This wasn't a chance encounter or a friendly visit. I was being ambushed. Over there! Get him! He's probably trying to run away, just like I said he would. The stairway door flew open, letting out a group that rushed towards me. Almost simultaneously, a large black car pulled around the corner, angling itself to block my path. Within seconds, I found myself being surrounded, but almost all of the presences I felt weren't vampires. They were humans. Hunters! Wait! I want to talk to him first. Two figures pushed through the group, swaggering towards me. She's pretty. Something about the woman seemed strangely familiar. No, she was definitely familiar. I'd seen her in the hotel lobby, angrily shouting at the desk clerk. She must have been an Iscari. I didn't recognize the man, but he had the normal air of a Mavar, only 10 times more bloodthirsty. So, are you here to kill me? Yeah, we're here to get rid of the fucking problem. We're ready to go back to how things were before you showed your ugly face here. Mavar smiled eagerly at me, almost salivating like a mad dog. We're not going to kill you, though. Flashing me a delighted smirk, the Iscari motions to the group surrounding me. These guys, they're hunters, and we made a deal with them to hand you over. They're really interested in all the juicy vampire secrets you know about, and they're gonna have a great time dragging them out of you. Why would you do that though? Because you're kinda selling yourself as well? I mean, maybe you have a deal with them and they will spare you but kill all the other vampires? That's weird. Why are you targeting me? Are you joking? He's definitely joking. God, I hope so. She let out a sharp laugh, rolling her eyes in disgust. This chick and I normally we hate each other's guts. But we hate your fucking guts even more, even if she doesn't hate you for the right reasons. The two exchanged glances, returning their hateful stares to me a moment later. You act like you're working with Cherise, don't you? But you just treat your job like it's whatever. You don't appreciate it. Getting to work with her is a privilege. Some of us try for years to get her attention. I'm working with what I've been given. How's that my fault? Because she just gave it to you. Some regular little Iscari who doesn't deserve anything. I never asked for any of this. I'm just trying to survive. Yeah, and so are we, but you don't care about anyone else, do you? Wow, jealous much, lady! As long as we're not in your little bubble of friends, you couldn't give a shit about us. You wanna be my friends? You can be my friend, like I don't care. Listen, who cares? He's gonna be dead by the end of the night, cause karma's a bitch. As if on cue, the hunters impatiently shifted around me, muttering to themselves. From what it sounded like, they were going to force me along in the car nearby. Come on, let's get the shit over with. I wanna see him squirm. Agreed. Go on, humans, take him already. I have one last question for you. Oh yeah? Well, spit it out already. How would you feel if you were in my place? Pretty shitty, because I'd be a piece of shit. What he said. If I were you, I would have killed myself a long time. The next moment, right as I blinked, suddenly the Mavar's head was gone. The only thing left was an empty bleeding stump. A circular saw blade lay on the ground just past his body, next to his severed head. Ah! The girl shrieked, stumbling back from the Mavar's corpse. A second huge blade whizzed past, slicing one of Hunter's arms in half. Lazarus! Right? Where is this coming from? I don't... Shit, no, please! Within seconds, chaos and panicked shrieks filled the garage. Everywhere I looked, blood splattered on the floor, limbs and chunks of flesh falling in red pools. All the hunters were wildly firing their guns, trying to hit the unseen Attica. One of them turned to run, racing for the exit, until a soul blade gored through his back, toppling him to the ground. Take over. I don't want to rescue the hunters. Not wanting to be the next victim, I dived behind an old car, huddling to the ground. All around me, I heard the hunters' panicked screams, abruptly cut off by wet slicing sounds. Whatever the attacker was, it wasn't showing them any mercy. The bloodbath didn't take much longer to finish. Before long, all the hunters were dead, and their bodies littering the concrete. The only vampire who'd escaped was the Iscari. She dashed away as fast as her legs could take her, disappearing around the corner and not looking back. As her footsteps faded away, I was left alone again, surrounded by a sea of mangled corpses. But in the eerie, too peaceful silence that followed, I heard the stairway door open and close. I think it's Lazarus, so I would follow. That sound had to be the mysterious attacker leaving. Knowing this would be my only chance to see them, I sprinted for the stairs, slamming the door open. There wasn't any normal vampiric scent for me to follow. There was something strange, alien. Still, I heard footsteps climbing above me, so I hurried desperately after them. When I reached the surface, I didn't see anyone at first, until I glanced down the alley just in time to glimpse a tall, dark-haired figure stalking into the street. I followed him as quickly as I could, rushing out of the alley. Out on the main road, a huge crowd was gathered for some kind of celebrity event. The man must have disappeared into the bustling throng of people because I couldn't see him anywhere. In the crowd, there was no way I'd be finding him anytime soon. His presence was just so hard to pin down, like it belonged to a ghost, or something else I couldn't even comprehend. I think it would be either Lazarus or Marcus, because Golgotha do have the obfuscate kind of ability. So when we were on the graveyard and we were looking for that SABBAT guy, we also didn't feel any smell of vampires, although there are apparently many of them there, because they do have this weird obfuscate kind of a thing that also hides their scent. So I would say either dark-haired one, so either Lazarus or Marcus. Disappointed, I ended up hailing a cab, riding back to the hotel with even more questions in my mind. Some flecks of blood, both the hunters and the vampires from the smell of it, had landed on my face and clothes. The taxi driver gave me a funny look, but he didn't seem as freaked out as he probably should have been. Maybe it wasn't his first time seeing a passenger like me. By the time I reached the hotel, I felt a little more composed. It was difficult to process what had happened, both for me and the hotel clerk, who stared at me open-mouthed as I arrived. Miss Locke would like to speak with you on the phone. Boy, do I ever have a story for her. After quickly dialing up a number, the clerk handed me the receiver. On the second ring, a voice picked up. Vince, is that you? What on earth happened? You should have been back some time ago. I heard a touch of worry in her voice. I was attacked on my way back. By whom exactly? Oh, for heavens, go on, just tell me everything. At Charisse's frustrated command, I explained what had happened in the parking garage. She listened silently, and I could almost hear the deep crease knitting on her brow. When I finally finished, she let out a long sigh. The following clink probably Charisse taking off her glasses. You seem to have this remarkable talent for attracting the worst sort of attention. If one of your attackers escaped, I've no doubt the news will spread like wildfire, so be prepared for any rumors drifting about. And the individual who rescued you is nearly just as worrying. Have you any idea who it was? I'm not sure, but they seemed incredibly strong. It certainly sounds that way. Slaughtering a group of hunters is no easy task, even for a powerful vampires. She exhaled another sigh, sounding as resigned as she did confused. Well, regardless of your mystery savior, you'll have to be on high alert from now on, Vince. I doubt most of the LA's vampires feel so passionately about you, but after tonight, we can't ignore the possibility. Maybe I should get a bodyguard. I wouldn't recommend that idea. In your case, it may only invite further attacks. The more one acts defensively, the more one encourages the offense. It may seem paradoxical, but it's all too true. After clearing her throat pointedly, Charisse paused for a moment. I'm out of the city right now on business, but I'll be back at the hotel tomorrow. We'll discuss things further then. Do try and stay alive until I've returned. I will, and you should do the same. Indeed, our times haven't come yet, Vince. With that, she abruptly hung up. I handed the phone back to the anxious-looking clerk, who offered me a temporary change of clothes again. That's good. By the time I drained the blood off my face and hair, there were still a few hours until sunrise. I had time to venture out into the city again, if I felt brave enough. Oh my god, there's so many places! You know what? I mean, Saturnalia is a place that we should visit, obviously, but I am thinking, let me just check out something. We don't seem to be that nice. Okay, some people told me though that we don't really have to have high faction rep with everyone, because that doesn't really do anything. I'm trying to keep it balanced, but apparently it's not the best idea. Anyway, I do want to visit the other places right now. The beach house and the graveyard, maybe, or the Blood and Roses. I would go to the beach house. Let's see. I have my driver take me to Santa Monica, deciding to stop by Randall's place. A large crowd was gathered inside, filling the air with the chattering of excited voices. Everywhere I looked, vampires were clustered tightly together like a hive of buzzing bees. And amidst the swarm of Bavar, I saw a strangely solitary figure by the sliding door. Randall. Talk to him. Ah, sorry. There we go. I stepped over to the door where the Mavar were giving Randall an unusually wide berth. Maybe he'd asked to be alone for a little while. When I got close, he didn't seem to notice me at first, until finally his head jerked up. Vince, I heard about what happened and Jesus Christ. He exhaled a long breath through his teeth, clenching his jaw. I'm sure you know this already, but I'd never let any of my guys attack you like that. It must have been some dumb fuck who thinks you're the one to blame for our problems. Are you doing okay? It was terrifying. I didn't know if I was going to make it out there. Fuck, I hope those fuckers all got whatever they deserved. Randall sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. Well, if you're right, then that's a big weight off my shoulders. If you want, we can talk about something else, get your mind off things. I get if you're not up for it, though. Something that happens? A meeting at Saturnalia with the Iscarian girls. Yeah, I got a tip off. We had to step in because there was no way I'd let that go down. I don't think anybody was killed, none of our people anyway, but damn, it was a mess. With a heavy sigh, Randall rubbed a hand along his forehead, hesitating briefly. Listen, though, if I said something in the heat of the moment and that made me sound like an asshole, well, I am an asshole. But I didn't mean to snap at you because you were with Heath. I just said the first thing that came to my mind, that's all. No hard feelings, I hope, even if I do still think that guy's a sad sack of shit. I like Randall, he's a cool guy. Probably won't be showing up at Saturnalia again anytime soon, but the blood's not that good anyway. I met this guy who lives in the sewers, Lazarus. Lazarus, huh? Not ringing any bells, sorry, though I didn't know the sewers were a real estate hotspot. Okay, something else. It is actually understandable he doesn't know Lazarus because he was solely Charisse's problem. Someone else. Do you know Alusha? Oh, the girl, yeah, she's pretty cool. We're not close or anything, but for a human, she actually kicks ass. What about Andre? As soon as I mentioned Andre's name, Randall went rigid, his teeth clenching. Don't ever fucking trust anything that guy tells you, Vince. All I'm gonna say is that he's a cold, evil bastard. Scares me more than Charisse does. Okay. I kinda wanna go with him though, but alrighty. About yourself. Do your tattoos have any meaning? Nah, it's mostly just designs they thought looked badass. Got them after I was turned, which is real bitch with vamp blood, let me tell ya. Nice smelling peat found away somehow. Some of them are related to the occult, since I was real into it for a while. Got a few Kabbalah references hidden in there too. Actually, in V5, the way it works is that you can leave tattoos with some sort of blood magic. So basically, Tremors are capable of leaving scarifications or tattoos on the skin of vampires that last, because normal ink doesn't. And also there is one lore sheet of a Nosferatu tattoo artist who is apparently very famous. So there is a character in the new Vampire the Masquerade who is a Nosferatu tattoo artist, and they do modifications. So, but it's always somehow magical because it cannot be done just like that. Not ram stamps yet, but maybe before I die. How do your house powers work? Same as the other Mufar, I'm nothing special. I guess I'm pretty good at sensing stuff, although I was always good at that. Maybe because I have a big nose. I don't know, kid. House powers are different for everybody. That's what makes it exciting, you know? He shrugged, ruffling a hand through his hair. It was kinda like weird because he said he's the same, but then that everyone is different, but that's fine. What are your dreams for the future? I'm gonna grow up and be a big rock star, obviously. Wonder what I'll call the band, eh? Hollywood Vampires sounds too cliche. Isn't that the band with Johnny Depp in it? Johnny Depp and Keith Richards, I think, and some other people? Yeah, the all-star band of drunkards. What about you, Vince? What are your dreams? I like to find happiness in this new life, whatever happiness ends up being. Happiness, yeah. I don't think anybody really knows what it means. Don't think it's any harder to find us a vampire than a human, though. We both got it rough. Let out a dry snort of laughter. Are there vampire hierarchies or oppression in other cities? Yeah, of course, it's everywhere, all over the world. Even after they're dead, people can't get enough of their fucking power trips. There's a lot of bad shit in California and New York, places where you got big shots with egos the size of a fucking planet, and plenty of them end up as vampires. It mostly ends up being a struggle between Mavar and Niskari, while Golgotha did their own weird thing. They sometimes pull strings from the shadows, I guess. Either way, it pisses me off that you can't escape as a vampire. You'd think we'd have evolved beyond human bullshit politics. Pure animals got it figured out better than we do, 9 times out of 10. How do you normally feed? Like a regular vampire. I find a human in dark street or in a club and I take my fill from them. Blow pets, humans who ask you to feed off them, they give me the heebie-jeebies. Not gonna lie, I don't like the idea of talking about the weather with my filet mignon. Okay, so his humanity is apparently low, because he seems to treat them all just like dinner. Besides, we're hunters by nature, top of the food chain, right? I'm not gonna kill an innocent human, but I sure as hell will drink from one. Randall briefly flashed me a faint smirk. Okay, about something else. I think this guy has a dark side. We just think that he doesn't, but he totally does. That's all for now. Alright, I'm real glad you came to see me, Vince. He reached out to squeeze my shoulder, gazing at me intently. Be careful out there because, well, until the war's over, anything could fucking happen. As we parted ways, I felt Randall's gaze still on my back, following me closely. Leave. Interesting. Slipping out of the beach house, I made my way back across the sand. So, oh my dear, I really want to go everywhere, but I don't think I can. The abattoir, Sternalia, the graveyard. I wish I could talk more with this guy to know a little bit more about his philosophy. And Lazarus is also interesting, but then again, I feel like if we don't visit Heath, he's going to take it against us. And then we should talk to Marcus as well. Damn! Okay, let's go to Heath. I feel like it's a good thing to do. Setting to pay Sternalia a visit, I hopped in a taxi to drive downtown. The bar was almost entirely empty. All I saw were a few vampires huddled reclusively by themselves and one unsuspecting human playing pinball in the corner. Over at the counter, he stood with a cigarette hanging absently between his lips, staring at the rows of bottles. Hey, honey. Vince. Reaching over at the bar, he suddenly curled his arms around my shoulders, burying his face against my shoulder. Aww. The hug didn't last too long, but in the brief moments he held me, I could feel him trembling slightly. People were already talking about what happened, and I'm so relieved that you're alright. I'm glad too. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it out, honestly. That must have been terrifying. I'm so sorry you had to go through it. We have to bring an end to this war before something like this happens again. He took a deep breath, slowly shaking his head. Well, I'm so happy you came here in person and I can see for myself that you're alright. Were you just stopping by for a drink after what happened, or did you want to ask me something? Anything else? Someone else? I can't actually talk to him. Oh no, there's nothing we can do. That's all for now, I think. Please, Vince, stay safe. If anything happened to you, I don't know what I'd do. So maybe no more dark parking garages alone, okay? He chuckled as he turned away, but the strain in his voice leaked through. That's sad. I mean, I'm happy we went to visit him, but still. Can I still go to places, please? I left the bar's quiet ambience, returned to the streets. There we go, we can go to places. So, let's go to Blood and Roses. I want to talk to Marcus. I wandered over to the counter where Marcus was hunched over, scribbling something onto a postcard. Ah, Vince. He lifted his head to gasp gently at my approach, although it seemed a little too theatrical. You caught me in the midst of some leisurely scribbles, it seems. How far are you tonight, Brava? Alive, at least in the figurative sense. That's always a promising start. You came to ask something of me, though. Am I not correct? Come, what's on your mind? Question about you? No. Okay. Someone else? No. Recently? Why were you at the party in Saturnalia? I simply had an idea that something interesting might happen. That, and I always enjoy making others uncomfortable when I can. I met this human named Lazarus in the sewers. Oh, what did you think of him? I think he's as fascinating as he is damaged. I'm not sure he'd appreciate you saying such a thing. Lazarus is neither the first nor the last of his kind, so whether you admire or despise him, I suggest you learn from his story. Okay, about something else? That's all for now. Very well. We'll see each other again soon, I'm sure. Right, Marcus. That's fine. Leaving Marcus' shop, I returned to the dark streets. Time had passed quickly and the night was already almost over. Time to head back. I wanted to do things! As I returned to my room, I still felt slightly unnerved from my earlier brush with death. The sight of all those bodies stayed fresh in my mind. What if our places had been reversed, and my corpse was lying there right now while they walked free? If not for my mysterious savior, that situation might have come true. The thought didn't give me any comfort as I huddled in for another dreamless rest. Somewhere outside my window, thunder rumbled in the distance. I'd been awoken by a phone call from Charisse an hour or two earlier, instructing me to stay in my room on standby. Something about the mission she was planning, but I had the feeling that wasn't her only motivation for keeping me here. So restless and wide awake, I sat flipping through the TV channels, absently taking in the infomercials and televangelists. As I stared absently at this screen suckling on a leftover blood bag, a firm knock came at my door. When I hopped off my bed and hurried over to answer it. Good evening, sir. Teresa's agent stood there, offering me a polite smile. Miss Locke wanted me to pass along a message to you. I'm listening. A Mr. Heath just called the hotel from Saturnalia. There are several newly turned Iscari waiting at the bar, requesting to speak with you. I'll see. I'll get right over then. Miss Locke has authorized the visit, so you may leave whenever you like. Mr. Heath has already paid for a taxi to ferry you to the bar. It should be here soon. Okay. Okay. The opportunity to stretch my legs was too good to pass up, as well as my curiosity about Heath's call, so I left my room to go wait for the cab. In a way, I wondered if Heath just wanted an excuse to spend time with me. The past few weeks, he jumped at any opportunity for us to be together. All of the attention was flattering, but I had to wonder if he wasn't neglecting himself in exchange. Or if he was just too afraid of spending too much time alone. Before long, a taxi pulled up beside the hotel, its cabby waving to me. As soon as I ducked inside, the driver immediately took off, revving his engine impatiently. For a short time, I sank into my idle thoughts, until I glanced up to the front seat. The cabby's eyes were darting around, flicking from the rear-view mirror to the road, with beads of sweat breaking out on his forehead. I couldn't figure out why he was so nervous until I looked out of the window at the street signs rushing by. This wasn't the way to Heath's bar. At some point, the driver must have turned around, and now we were heading in the opposite direction. Where are you taking me? Well, it's sure as hell in the bar. I know we were supposed to go there, but that's why I turned around. His words came in a nervous stream, mumbled from his spittle-flecked lips. Listen, all the guy said was start driving towards Saturnalia, then once you're away from the hotel, turn around and bring him back here. I'm just following orders, okay? He gave me a fuck ton of cash and I got bills to pay. I don't make enough doing this fucking job. Here, where was he talking about? Yeah, well, you'll see soon enough. Just shut up, would you? He grumbled in response, avoiding eye contact in the mirror. My confusion lasted for a while longer, until the stress started to look unusually familiar, and despite my initial disbelief, the streets, yeah, not the stress. I finally realized where he was taking me. Sure enough, the driver eventually pulled me up before a familiar set of towering gates. He said he'd be waiting inside for you, so get going. I'm supposed to stay here until you guys come out, but could you try and hurry it up, whatever the hell it is you're doing? This place gives me the fucking creeps. Cemetery. I'll be back soon, with Heath. Right, go on, sooner you get in there, sooner we can leave. Stepping out of the car, I approached the iron gates, which were cracked just enough to let me inside. I started down the path, staying alert for any sign of Heath, but it was difficult, if not downright impossible, to detect a single vampire's presence. Because everywhere, all around me, I felt them watching me. So you can still feel the smell, maybe. I couldn't see them and the sensation may have been just an illusion. But it was like 1,000 tiny pinpricks all over my skin, needle-like eyes piercing me from every side. Then among the distant tombstones I saw a figure. They were sauntering towards me, winding along the path at a leisurely pace. It was too unnaturally dark to make out any of their features until... Well, if it isn't a late-night visitor. He came to a stop several feet away, tilting his head to one side. Most of his features were hidden thanks to the unnatural darkness. Isn't it just delightful the way fate keeps bringing us together? Do you know where Heath is? I do, actually. Zhang smiled at me thinly. I noticed he seemed more subdued than usual, with less of his Cheshire cat grin or loud sing-song manner of speaking. Oh, no doubt you want to see him, Heath that is to say, so why don't we head off to where he's waiting? Come. Without waiting for my reply, he turned sharply on his heel and began striding down the path. For some reason my recording stopped briefly, so I have to catch you up to the last few lines. I hurried to keep up with his quick pace, weaving through the legions of tombstones. Curiously enough, Zhang didn't seem inclined to mock or even chatter with me tonight. Is something wrong? No, not particularly. Glancing at me briefly, Zhang reached up to adjust his hat. Although these days it's easier to ask if something is right and just assume the rest has, well, gone to hell, really. He offered a slightly forced chuckle. Why don't you just tell me? I'm a good listener. Zhang stayed silent for several long moments, tracing a thumb along his bottom lip. There are simply a few interesting complications involving you, my good Vince. Complications multiplied by other complications, which are compounded by yet more complications. Nearly enough to drive a man mad. Awfully convenient that I'm already judged that way, though. His last words carried a not-so-subtle finality, suggesting he wouldn't let me press the issue any further. We submerged back into the silence, our footsteps clicking in a steady rhythm along the path. As we walked further into the graveyard, I realized we were approaching a familiar structure. The old mausoleum towered higher and higher before us, rising like a castle from among the graves. Zhang came to a stop beside the mausoleum, clearing his throat. Well, I believe you'll find him around in the front. I'll be taking my leave then, I think. After delivering those words to me, he immediately turned away, already taken a step back down the path. Wait, Zhang! I called out to him, but Zhang seemed to deliberately ignore me. Before long, his wiry form disappeared into the dark, and I was left alone again. Slowly, I crept towards the front of the mausoleum, unsure of what I might see. As I rounded the corner, the sight that greeted me was... Two figures standing face to face, silhouetted. I cannot understand why Locke would treat you so callously. Oh wait, he was the one with the R, right? I cannot understand why Locke would treat you so callously. When you are, in all certainty, a sublime example of your house. Murmuring under his breath to Heath, Andrei lightly cupped his face, but the gesture looked entirely devoid of affection. My poor boy. Heath made no reply, his lower lip trembling until he sank his fangs against it. Neither of them seemed to notice me, as if they were in their own entirely separate world. I know you have made many decisions that you gaze back upon with regret, but I assure you this will not be one of them. I believe you. Heath's faint whisper was nearly carried away by the wind. I believe you, Andrei, but what about him? He stressed him with a strain of worry leaking into his voice. Will he really understand? Or will he think that you're... I am certain he will. Andrei smoothly overran Heath's thought, shaking his head. The gentleness in his voice sounded almost alien, an odd contrast to his usual tone. Perhaps he even intended to bring you to my side of his own accord before long. You're right. More than anything, I hope you're right. His gaze slowly lowered from Andrei's face, staring distantly at something or someone that wasn't there. Andrei stood at him in silence, glowing eyes washing over Heath's pale features. Don't touch my boy! Get your hands off him! Then, as if pulled from a trance, he stepped back from Heath, turning to face me. Welcome, Vince. Heath stiffened, jerking towards me in shock. Vince, I didn't know you were already here. It's so hard to detect other presences in this place. The two of you have some explaining to do. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply and smoothing a hand through his hair. When our gazes met again, he seemed to have regained some of his composure. A little while ago, Andrei contacted me in secret. He told me you agreed to work for him and I should do the same. He stole a glance at Andrei, who was staring coolly and evenly at us. After the war is over, she's... His voice cracked, horror and sadness slowly etching into his features. She's planning to get rid of me. How do you know? When Andrei reached out to tell me, I didn't believe it at first. So I crept into her office myself to look for her agent files. She kept records on all of us, always up to date. But my file was gone, emptied. I know too many of her most valuable secrets to just be let go, which means he cut himself off as if he couldn't finish or accept the thought. His fingers coiled in his scarf, gripping the fabric tightly, and I could see him clenching his jaw. I have been cognizant of Locke's intentions for some time, but I believed it more prudent to remain uninvolved. Andrei softly stepped in, standing all the more calm and collected next to Heath's shakiness. However, with your allegiance pledged to me, Vince, and factoring in your connection to Heath, I would much prefer to have two highly capable agents aligned with my goals. I feel like it still might have been fabricated, but on the other hand, I was supposed to go with him from the get-go, so I don't know what to do. How do you feel about this, Heath? For a moment, Heath turned his face up to the moon, the light casting a ghostly sheen over his pale skin. But slowly a certain resolve seemed to grip him, washing away the lingering doubt in his eyes. If you believe in Andrei's cause, Vince, then I do too. He wants to make the world safer for us all. I'm doing the R now. I have to stop. One day we won't have to hide any longer. One day we'll all be able to step back into the light of Hollywood. His voice resonated with a firm, almost eager hope. I'll pledge myself to him, to our future. As Heath spoke, Andrei observed him in silence. It was impossible to read his nearly emotionless features, but there was something sharper in his gaze than idle curiosity. I will ensure that you are both treated with the respect you deserve. He paused, letting his eyes return to my face. Locke, I'm afraid, did not appreciate the full extent of Heath's aptitudes. I found her treatment of him to be painfully foolish, as he is clearly suited to a much higher purpose beyond grunt work. But society does often blind one's insight. A faint, nearly imperceptible smile flickered over his lips. Are we in agreement then? The three of us as allies, poised to rally ourselves and overthrow Locke at the first opportunity. I don't think we should enable Heath in it all, because it's still enabling him. He wants to have this future because I don't know. Let me be nice to him now, but I will make my decision later on. Of course, I'll be ready and waiting. I'm enabling you, you motherfucker. A hugely relieved smile washed over Heath's face, the tension visibly leaving his body. Excellent. You have chosen wisely, Vince, and with a selflessness that speaks to your character. He offered me a brief nod of approval, narrowing his eyes a little. The time for action is very close now. When it arrives, you will most certainly sense it. Do not let it pass you by. But I believe there will be no going back. With that, Andrei abruptly turned away from us, taking slow steps towards the mausoleum entrance. Now, if you would, please leave me. There are many preparations left to be completed. Come on, Vince. Stepping up to my side, he gently curled his arm around my waist. He seemed eager to leave, shifting his weight a little from foot to foot, as if lingering here made him feel uneasy. We returned to the path Zhang had led me down before, although now he was nowhere to be seen. I'm sorry for tricking you tonight, Vince, and for not telling you about this sooner. As soon as we were out of the earshot, he stole an apologetic glance at me. I felt that he will want to work with them, actually. That's why I went with them in the first place, but then again, I'm not really sure if this is a good way for him. I'm not sure if enabling his little insecurities through the work with this guy is a good option. I think it would be best if you could just find a way for Charisse to make up with him and for him to actually come to terms with his past and with the disappearance of his mother and everything, and just like go to freaking vampire therapy. But I don't know if it's possible. It's supposed to be a sad game. It just seemed like I never had the opportunity to tell you what I found out, and even if I did, I wasn't sure what you think of me. I was afraid you'd see me as someone who could be easily persuaded to change sides, to betray others. No, but I know Andrei is very persuasive. He is, yes. He reluctantly nodded, and for a moment I envisioned Andrei's hands holding his face. But he can't lie about Charisse's behavior on her files. The thing I've seen for myself. He might have fabricated though, but that's okay. I decided to help him, Vince. He didn't force me into it, I promise. He gave me a firm, reassuring nod, either fully convinced of what he was saying or masking any doubt without a trace. But we're finally on the same page, and that's what's important. We'll make it through the end of this war, and when it's all over, we'll have a brighter future to look forward to. I don't know. Soon we reached the graveyard's exit, where the taxi driver was still waiting for us. He grumbled and muttered under his breath as we climbed inside, taking off with a screech and zooming towards the city. Heath pulled his legs up to his chest, watching the city lights go past his window. They flickered across his face one by one, coloring his pale skin red, then green and blue. You are planning to stay loyal to him, aren't you? Heath spoke up abruptly, turning his head towards me. I don't know yet, honestly. He stared at me, brow jerking into a shocked, confused frown. A moment later, though, his expression dissolved into a gentler, but still visibly worried smile. I'm sure you'll find your resolve soon. I know I did. Before long, the taxi pulled up on the side of the street, but we were still a few blocks down from the hotel. He slipped out to open the door for me, although he didn't close it after I stepped out. I'm sorry to make you walk, it's just a precaution for your safety and mine. Tension still weighed in his voice, even darkening his eyes. I need to go back to Saturnalia to smooth over the cover story I gave Charisse, but I'll see you soon, very soon. He took my hands in his, softly kissing my knuckles and fingers. I promise. How soon is soon? As soon as I can. He let out a slightly mischievous laugh, toying with his scarf. He released my hands to reach out, lightly running his fingers through my hair. For a brief moment, the strain seemed to lift from his face, and a soft, genuine smile eased onto his lips. But he pulled away from me swiftly, turning back to the cab, throwing me a final look over his shoulder. Stay safe, Vince. He ducked into the taxi, pulling the door shut behind him. The impatient driver started the engine immediately, and they were zooming down the street a few seconds later. Even though Heath was gone, it felt like a strange weight still hung in the air. And as I began to walk back to the hotel, that weight seemed to always linger on my heels. Rain pattered gently against my window. I gazed down at the distant city streets, where the wet pavement glistened with the reflection of endless lights. A little while ago, I'd awoken to the soft sound of a storm. Somehow it made the world seem so peaceful, calm and drowsy, entirely different from the bristling tension that filled the past few days. Listening to the rain almost made my tired body want to drift back to sleep. Ring, ring. We'll be getting this phone in the next episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today, and yeah, let me know what you think about it. I think that was a pretty intense meeting there with Andrei and his approach towards Heath and him convincing him. I mean, I do smell a rat in here, but still I feel like it might be interesting to side with Andrei and be the evil one, the SABBAT for once. I don't know if it's evil though. I don't know if he's particularly an evil guy or more evil than anyone else, but it seems this way. Anyway, let's see you in another one, and don't get lost in the night. Goodbye.